Okay, let's see. Doop-de-doop-de-doo. All right. Uh-oh. Let me restart. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome. And all right, let's see if we can get our Periscope viewers restarted. And if you all will give me just a moment, my YouTube viewers, it's usually you all that give me the hard time getting started. So, all right, let's try this one more time. Excuse me. All right, let's try it again. Okay. So I want to say good morning, good morning, good morning to everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Going to give a few seconds for you all to come in. My YouTube broadcast has already been going for about 2 minutes. So we are going to get started. Good morning. And Lady Latoya, I did get your message, and I'm going to try to get that to you today, if my schedule permits. If not, it will definitely be by Monday. All right. So today we are talking about health. Most of our Fridays we've been covering health or wealth or both. And today we're just going to talk specifically about health. And the book that I'm going to be reading from is called The Vegucation of Robin: How Real Food Saved My Life. As I was previewing this book, I've had this book probably for about 6 months. The first third of the book is partly her journey and also partly her teaching on the difference between a meat-based diet versus a plant-based diet. And then the other 2/3 of this book has to do with recipes. So she actually puts in here different recipes that she uses for, good morning, that she uses for different ways to cook. All right. She tells you how she cooks her vegetables, and she comes up with different meals for soups. She tells you how she cooks her grains, etc., etc. So the reason why I picked up this book, I'll just give you just kind of the background for her. Robin Quivers is actually a radio and TV personality and host of The Chatter. And just from reading, I could tell I believe she is a former nurse. So she has some background in health anyway. It says here, beloved for her big sense of humor and even bigger laugh, radio superstar Robin Quivers rocked the entertainment world in 2013 when she revealed that she was recovering from an aggressive form of cancer and that she credited her plant-based diet with making her body healthy and resilient enough to survive against the odds. Now she shares the secrets behind her victory over the high-fat, high-sugar, high-cholesterol, highly addictive foods that almost put her into an early grave. On her sometimes rocky but always enduringly funny path to newfound health, Robin filled up on soul-filling, cell-nourishing vegetables instead of damaging animal products and processed foods. Charting her inspiration road to wellness in this book, it is both her manifesto and can be used as your own roadmap to health, including instructions on how to kick your immune system into gear with a juice cleanse, more than 90 of her own plant-based recipes, and the case for going plant-based with undeniable proof that you can't build something living from something dead. All right. So there are several sections that I want to cover today. I don't know if we'll get to them all. If not, we will bring this book back again on next Friday, but we'll also do, of course, our business segment. But I want to go to her section on plants, your weapon against disease, and then we will move around the book from there, because I do want to first talk to you all about what she says about plant-based diets. I try to keep my meat eating down, even though I still do eat meat. But I recommend a Mediterranean diet, which is more your beans, your fruits, your vegetables, and kind of limiting the kinds of meat that you eat. Now, do I eat pork at times? Yes, I do. But I have learned to cut down on how much pork I've been eating. And my husband will tell you, at one point, I think I went like 6 weeks without trying to eat any pork or ribs or anything like that, because I was trying to make sure that I am learning how to discipline my own self, right? I know that some of us have our favorite foods and we're like, oh, I can't live without this food. I gotta have this particular kind of food. But when you see what certain things are doing to your body, you have to make the decision of whether or not you're going to discipline yourself so that you can get in the best health possible. All right. So plants, your weapon against disease. If you're probably thinking, if I shouldn't be eating meat or dairy or anything that comes in a package at a supermarket, then what actually should I be trying to eat? That's a question she asks. The simple answer is plants. Earlier, I talked about how I still managed to hit wellness rock bottom eating foods that most people don't consider to be unhealthy. The problem was, aside from all the hidden sugar and salt and total lack of nutrition, I wasn't eating any plants at all. The things that come out of the ground, vegetables, fruit, whole grains, and legumes, are the good earth's little miracles when it comes to eating a diet that supports your health. I know it seems crazy, especially when everyone from our parents to our teachers to our government has been drilling into our minds that we need things like meat and dairy to round out our diet. But we just don't need that stuff, she says. The meat and dairy lobbies have pushed hard to fetishize their wares as being the primary sources of protein, calcium, and iron. But when you eat a plant-based diet, you're automatically getting all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients you need. I only eat plants and I haven't died yet. I haven't come up with some crazy kind of deficiency. In fact, I'm healthier than I've ever been in my life, she says. People ask me all the time if I miss eating steak or having cheese with my wine. And the answer is no, I don't. Because when you're reaping the benefits of a plant-based diet, you learn pretty quickly that it's just not worth feeling crummy ever again. Plants prevent and reverse disease. Even those diseases thought to be due to genetic disposition. As demonstrated by the groundbreaking research and medical approach of doctors like T. Colin Campbell, Caldwell Estleton, and John McDougall, not only can a plant-based diet prevent illnesses such as heart disease, diabetes, strokes, various cancers, autoimmune disease, bone disease, kidney disease, and vision and brain disorders in old age, it can actually reverse their onset. These three men and their combined 93 years of research have proven that changing your diet to one that is plant-based can also help you live longer, feel younger, lose weight, lower your blood cholesterol and blood pressure, decrease your need for pharmaceutical drugs and surgeries, and have more energy, keep your bones strong, preserve your eyesight, keep your mind sharp, and have a healthier sex life by warding off impotence. Now, as she said, she wasn't eating any plant-based food at all. And of course, we know that that's a problem. You need to have several servings of vegetables, you need to have several servings of fruit, and you need to have several servings of either beans or grains in your diet. All right. So again, Plants do prevent and reverse disease. I know as I've been going through my own health journey, when I went in and my doctors did all of my testing, my issue did not have to do with my diet. Like that wasn't the issue. It was something that didn't have to do with my diet. And my doctor was able to say, hey, you're in great health for your age, except for this one thing, and we can fix that because it doesn't have to do with your diet or not taking care of your health in terms of your eating. All right. I'm 39 years old, but people often talk to me like I'm 16. And then I have to say, you know, I am 39. And then I have to show them my little streaks of gray to let them know I'm not a teenager. Someone offered me, they were asking me what kind of foundation do I use for my face? And I said, I don't have on any foundation. I use water. That's my foundation. I'm not joking. All right. So I try to do what I need to do health-wise to begin to make sure that my body is in the condition that I can be able to live a long life, not just a long life, okay, but a long life in good health. There's a lot of people who live a long time, right? But they don't live it in good health. So that is kind of what she's talking about in this book. How do you get yourself to living a long life in good health? For those of you just coming in, I want to say good morning. We're reading from the Vegucation of Robin. And she's talking about, in this book, how she changed her diet to defeat an aggressive form of cancer. Okay? And we know, especially in the Black community, we have really, really high rates of breast cancer. And we have high rates of fibroids, right? And tumors and stuff like that, especially with women. So we have to think about, what are we eating? Now, I know this one is going to shock you all, because it shocked me as I started doing the study. And I said, well, gosh, if we're having this kind of issue with the seafood industry, what are we going to eat? All right. Because I was cutting down. I don't think I eat any red meat at all. I can't remember. I think I had a piece of steak a couple months ago. It was like my first time eating steak, and people were shocked. Like, what? What do you mean it's your first time eating steak? It was never something that I was like, oh my gosh, I want to eat steak. So I tried it, and it was very difficult to get through eating. All right. But then I found out, in studying what's happening with the seafood industry, there's a lot of seafood that is believed to be contaminated. And so my thing was, if the seafood is contaminated, I know for a fact that right up here, number 1 or number 2 on the list of things that African Americans like to eat is seafood. We like our crabs. We like our shrimp. Okay. We like our lobster. We like our tilapia. I like salmon. But I'm looking at what is happening to the seafood industry. You can just go and Google it yourself. Google toxicity in seafood. All right. And as I started looking at that, I'm like, if that is our main diet for many African Americans, could that have some connection to the amount of cancers that we're seeing in our community? All right. Because of the amount of seafood that we as a community eat. So that's something that I want to look into, because I just thought that was, I noticed that we have an increase in cancer in our community, especially among women. And then I look at the women that I know that have dealt with breast cancer, and a lot of them consume a lot of seafood. Just something to think about. All right. She says here, plants are nature's bodyguards. Plants are nature's bodyguards. When plants come under fire from potentially dangerous toxins or free radicals, they put up a shield. Made out of a chemical blend called antioxidants, these shields soak up the invaders like a sponge. Humans don't have this ability, nor do animals. So don't go thinking that your steak is doing any of these favors. But when we eat plants, we get their little superhero powers. Free radicals enter our system through all kinds of things: industrial pollutants, too much sunlight, animal-based foods, and they cause serious damage to tissue all over our body. And when tissues start to degrade, they become rigid, which leads to things like Alzheimer's, dementia, cataracts, hardening arteries, cancer, emphysema, and arthritis. So though we can't ward off free radicals ourselves, the plants that we eat take care of it. And because different antioxidants come in different colors, i.e. the yellow beta carotene of carrots and squash, the red lycopene of tomatoes, the orange beta cryptoxanthins of oranges, make sure to get the most protection possible by eating a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. Plants also give us the power of fiber. Fiber is an amazing thing. It's found exclusively in plant-based foods. We don't digest much of it, but it does wonders for us. It pulls water from the body into the intestines to keep things moving. And because it's like a gunk magnet attracting all the chemicals and toxins it encounters on its way out, fiber helps us flush out anything that might be harmful to our system. Not getting enough fiber leaves us vulnerable to constipation-based diseases and disorders, including large bowel cancer, hemorrhoids, and varicose veins. Eating a lot of fiber is associated with lower rates of cancers of the rectum and colon and lower levels of blood cholesterol. And it also means feeling fuller while eating less. And because high fiber foods like whole grains and leafy greens also happen to be high in iron, you're getting a nutrient double whammy. Now, let me say this about iron, because I just went through having an iron deficiency anemia. Even though I was eating all of these plants and vegetables and fruit, all right? This is where seeing your physician or seeing a doctor who is actually concerned about your health, this is where this piece comes in, to where when I had a discussion with my doctor, he said because of the type of iron deficiency you have, you can't completely eliminate meat from your diet. Isn't that interesting? So again, this is not medical advice, putting my caveat in here. Make sure you see a doctor about your health. These are recommendations. These are telling you what plants do for your body. But if you're going to start on the journey to health, especially with your eating, make sure you see a nutritionist and a doctor. Plants make you skinny. When you eat a meat-centric, high-fat, high-protein diet, your body retains more calories than you need. Exactly, Pastor. Special cases for each body. When you eat a plant-based diet, your body needs to use the calories, not turn them into body fat. So instead of being stored away in your third chin, most of them are delegated to keeping your body warm and stoking your metabolism. In fact, people who eat plant-based diets have far fewer issues with their weight, even if they consume the same or even slightly more calories than their animal-eating friends. The carbohydrates you're getting from fruit, vegetables, and grains, when they're unprocessed and unrefined, are complex. That means they not only have a ton of vitamins, minerals, and accessible energy, but they take longer for the body to break down. You're not flooding your system with glucose the way you would with chips, candy, and toaster strudels, and you'll feel fuller longer. So now she asks the question, do I need to take supplements? Do I need to take supplements? If you don't already have a specific nutrient deficiency, and the only way you're going to find that out, okay, is through a blood test. And we talked about this last time when I was sharing my journey of how I found out in the first place that I was dealing with iron deficiency anemia. I had to take a blood test, and they did several blood panels. They tested my vitamin D, they tested my ferritin levels. So this is something that you can request from your doctor, all right, to actually see what kind of supplements you might need to take to get certain vitamins and minerals back up in your body. Sometimes we're trying to fight our lack of energy with other things, when if we do the blood work, you will be able to pinpoint exactly what is wrong and take supplements, okay, that match what needs to go up in your body. And as I was sharing last time, as I started studying multivitamins, I know a lot of people tell you to take multivitamins, but as I was studying them, one thing that they said is that sometimes multivitamins don't have enough of what you actually need, and then they have more in the multivitamin of things you don't really need for your body, which is why it's important that if you're going to start taking supplements, that you actually get your blood work done, your vitamin and mineral levels checked, so you know what you're actually needing to take supplementally, okay? And there are plenty of, there's health stores, there's places like GNC that offer individual supplements for things. So if I am, for example, if I am low in vitamin D, I don't need to be taking a vitamin B mix, right? That's not what I need to focus on. I need to focus on getting my vitamin D levels up, okay? So she says here, if you don't already have a specific nutrient deficiency, or you are older than 50, then you most likely don't need to take a vitamin supplement. Because nutrition is such a complex biochemical system involving thousands of components that combine to meet your body's needs, there's no way a single pill can imitate a nutrient-packed diet. Just like I described, mimicking a plant's active ingredients in a lab is a far inferior source of vitamins and minerals than the actual thing. And if you're eating a varied diet made up of all or mostly plant-based foods, you're getting basically all the good stuff that you need. Calcium, iron, protein, the three that always seems to be a concern when I tell people I don't eat meat, are in abundance and readily absorbed from foods like leafy greens, legumes, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. The two main exceptions, and this is what I came to find out myself, are vitamin B12 and vitamin D, which can be difficult to get enough of or absorb sufficiently. I had two doctors as I was going through this process of getting my health back in order that said African Americans tend to have lower levels of vitamin B12 and vitamin D. So if you're African American, you can start there with getting those two things checked. A deficiency in B12, which comes from bacteria found in the soil that no longer coats our fruits and vegetables at the market, can lead to anemia and neurological disorders. And not enough D, which you're particularly at risk for if you have darker skin, can lead to cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, cognitive impairment like Alzheimer's, and cancer. You should have your doctor routinely check your levels of these vitamins in addition to ferritin, which is the storage form of iron. And that was what they checked. When I went in, my ferritin levels were at dangerous levels. As a matter of fact, my doctor was basically saying, we don't understand how you're alive. How about we work on that? Let's get you over here and let's get you back to good health. All right. So make sure your ferritin levels are getting checked, which is the storage form of iron, and it gives a more accurate picture of whether or not you are deficient. For a complete list of blood work, I recommend see An Ounce of Prevention is Worth a Pound of Cure, How Blood Tests Can Save Your Life. And so we're going to hopefully have time to go there. So let me move on to the next section here, which is all right. You are what you eat and can't excrete. I know, that sounds yucky, doesn't it? But I'd rather be talking about this while you are living than attending your funeral and you can't hear me speak. You are what you eat and can't excrete. Think of your body as a spaceship. Remember, Apollo 13, after Houston, we have a problem. When the guys on the ground were scrambling to think of solutions, they were finding ways to use whatever resources were available in that little capsule to shunt oxygen from one area to another area and save the astronauts' lives. I'm sorry, darling. I'm so very sorry. That's exactly what a body does. You're a capsule, and all you have for resources are the things you carry around with you. Every day, your body is playing a game. What can we use to make enzymes? What can we use to clean our system? What do we have that we can use to make fresh cells for our liver? Because your body is always working for you. And despite all your efforts to derail it, it's constantly scouring everything you toss in order to keep you alive. Not necessarily in the peak of good health, but alive. The body is always seeking a stable, constant internal environment, or what's called homeostasis. No matter what you do, it will always try to stay there, comfortably in the middle. This function helps us deal with changes in our external environment, handle stress, and fend off disease. Just like your house's thermostat can sense changes in temperature and then adjust, your body can also sense changes in body temperature, glucose levels, hydration, heart rate, breathing rate, and the presence of pathogens or things that make you sick. So when you eat, your body turns into a little biochemist. It takes whatever you've ingested, breaks it down, diverts those compounds to where they could actually be used to help maintain homeostasis. It can make fresh blood, build more arterial highways, create new cells, do the housekeeping it needs to do to keep things running smoothly. Now, interesting enough, all of that happens with your natural body. So just think about what your natural body automatically does and then apply that to the body of Christ. Just think about it, okay? I know we're not talking about them today, but just think about it. When you give your body something, it has a hard time processing, like animal products and processed foods. There's nowhere for this stuff to go. Oh my. I'm gonna read that again. When you give your body something that it has a hard time processing, there's nowhere for it to go. As I told an interviewer, you are what you eat and don't excrete. That's because if you're giving your body foods that are really difficult for it to break down and use, they just sit there. This is why some of us experience that feeling of fullness, or we feel like we get up and we feel very heavy. We can't move from the table. It's hard for us to walk. Hours later, you're still feeling that feeling. You possibly could have given your body something that it cannot process quickly. Okay? A steak can take up to 3 days to digest. That's probably why I won't be eating another one. It just felt heavy. Think about what would happen if you left a steak on your counter for 72 hours. It would rot, and your body isn't exactly refrigerated either. So now it's sitting in you, decaying. Your body doesn't want it to gunk up your organs or your bloodstream, and so it hides it. It tucks it away where no one will see it. It's like that closet or junk drawer that you shove everything into when people are coming over. As long as nobody tries to open the door or the drawer, everything will appear fine. A similar thing happens in your body, except instead of a closet, that garbage is being stored in your joints and in extra fat cells. And they're not clean, fluffy fat cells. They're dirty, gunky fat cells full of all the hormones and chemicals that have been pumped into the food that you're eating. And it's just sitting there. But but your butt is not a junk drawer. Meanwhile, that brings a whole new understanding to junk in the trunk, right? Because it literally is junk in the trunk. Meanwhile, your systems are getting sluggish because they aren't getting the nutrients they need, and all the energy your body does have is being diverted to deal with the junk instead of rebuilding and healing. Your body can't keep up with processing all that junk, so it stops doing some of its other jobs. Are your knees hurting? Sorry, can't heal it. We're busy. We're doing only the essentials right now. Anything else will be delayed. Wonder why you get colds all the time, or migraines, or injuries that won't heal? Because your body is too busy keeping you alive to sweat the small stuff. And so you start to suffer and your quality of life goes out the window. Now let me say something on migraines. I used to experience migraines from the time I was 11, okay, consistently up until about, 6 months ago? Consistently. Migraines affected every part of my life. If I had an event to go to and a migraine struck, guess what? I couldn't go. I would literally lose sight and I would be out. Sometimes I would go into a severe migraine, which means that it would end up with me vomiting. All right. And sometimes I would be like that for several days. Sometimes it would last a couple hours. I would try to take prescribed medication for my migraines. The medication would make it worse. And then I got to the point where I was just taking like an Advil just to kind of dull the pain. I would be driving on my way to work. Migraine strikes. I have to pull over to the side of the road because I can't see. And then I would have to wait. Sometimes up to an hour before I could take my medication and it, settle in, and then I would get back on the road. So it was affecting my job performance. And people who have never dealt with migraines don't know how disabling and debilitating migraines can be. And some people aren't very sensitive to it. They think, oh, you just got a headache and you don't want to do stuff, or you don't want to do ministry. No. Have a migraine and then come back and talk to me about it. Okay? All right. But recently, okay, I started changing the kind of water that I was drinking. Alkaline-based water, okay? And I started taking probiotics. Once I went to the doctor, realized I needed to do some things about my gut health, I started taking probiotics. And guess what? I can't remember the last time I had a migraine. Think about that. And I've been dealing with migraines since I was 11. All right. So if you are suffering from migraines, I want to challenge you with your water intake, and I want to challenge you to consider going to your doctor and discussing what kind of probiotics you can take to deal with your gut health. All right. What's worse is that when your body does need to call on its resources to mend or heal, look at the materials you're giving it to work with. Do you really want your body repairing your organs with a Cheeto? Think about it. If you're a spaceship and everything you need is in your little capsule, but you're only stocking up on hamburgers, ice cream, Red Bull, and Twinkies, then that's the material your body is grabbing for when it needs to make new cells. Yes, sir. Your body is literally rebuilding itself out of junk. That said, your body is still truly an amazing thing. Every time you extend your foot to meet the curb, your body is doing a mathematical calculation to get you there. Remember all those elements and formulas you could never remember in chemistry class? Your body already knows them. How do you think a drug that's supposed to deal with your mood works? It's in a pill, but it's your body that goes, oh, that's supposed to go to my brain, so let's send it up there. Some guy in the laboratory is packaging that stuff into little tablets, but your body is the one who has to get it to the right place. We're all geniuses and we just don't know it. Look at people like Ozzy Osbourne, Keith Richards, and Steven Tyler. If a body can survive those guys, a body can do anything. If a body can put up with what they were doing and combat it, it's genius. The same goes for us. We get too little sleep sometimes, endure too much stress, eat wrong things. Some of us drink alcohol, take drugs, any number of things, but the body is still willing to give it a go. So how about we do something nice for our bodies? The first thing to understand about your body and wellness is that nothing happens in isolation. Get this. If one part is sick, the whole body is sick. That one part didn't just get sick on its own. So if your coronary arteries are clogged, then guess what? All of your arteries are clogged. So nothing is getting the oxygen it needs. Things aren't working like they should. People are always saying, oh, I have a bad leg, or I have a bad liver, or I have a bad heart. And I say, no, you have a bad body. But our specialized medical system supports this disjointed thinking. When I became ill, doctors were looking to treat my symptoms, my neck, my shoulder, my knee. I was the one who finally realized that something was wrong with all of me. I knew that until I addressed my body as a whole, all those parts that were hurting would never get better. Once I had that one big goal and not a lot of little ones, I could find that one solution. That would help everything get better. When I realized my ill health was a result of what I was eating, I knew I needed to stop relying on foods that were making me sick. The very foods I was ingesting were depriving my organs of the oxygen they needed to keep themselves at peak function, causing inflammation that was making my joints ache, preventing my cells from communicating with one another. And I saw that these foods would one day be the cause of any number of diseases that are absolutely preventable. I finally understood that I needed to be putting foods back in that would give my body fuel to rebuild and heal. If you want to make a change to your health, your body, and your life, then that all starts here. It starts with learning how the foods you eat can directly help or harm you. As I said before, this isn't about identifying as a vegan or a vegetarian. This isn't about labels. What it is about is understanding the materials you're giving to your body to work with make all the difference between surviving discomfort, limitation, and downward spiral of expensive medical care and living. So I do want to say this. When she talks about food, one of the things that I notice when I drive through certain neighborhoods, whether that is I'm driving through a poor section of town, or whether I'm driving through the part of town that's supposed to be quote unquote really affluent, one of the things that I try to look for is what are the food sources in that town? What are the food sources that I can visually see when I'm driving down the street? On one side of town, okay, I notice that the only food sources there are maybe locally owned restaurants who have been in the area for many, many years. And that's a good thing. When you see local restaurants, that means that people are eating, all right? They're eating prepared food many times. And if it's locally owned, it's probably being cooked fresh, right? They're not a franchise, so they're not just throwing in food that's been pre-cooked and frozen and then heating it back up, which happens in most chain restaurants, just in case you all didn't know, all right? So they're probably getting real, actually cooked food. But then I look at what else is surrounding that neighborhood besides those mom and pop restaurants, which there's maybe about 3 to 5 of them. And the only other thing that's in that neighborhood beyond one grocery store is a McDonald's. So think about that. I have a grocery store, maybe 1 or 2, which is not a whole lot of choices, a McDonald's, and then the family restaurants. So a person who is maybe on a limited budget, or they have to eat out quite a bit, or they're on their way to work or whatever, and they're taking care of just their daily comings and goings, many of them wind up at the McDonald's. And that's just the reality of it. So if that is the only thing in your neighborhood, that's a problem. Okay? Then I drive through the other sides of town that are more affluent, okay? Middle class, upper class, etc. And there is an Aldi, you have Trader Joe's, you have maybe your Food Lion, you have a Giant, you have, okay, so you, in other words, you have at least 4 or 5 different grocery stores to choose from. All right. They might have a Wendy's. They might have a Chipotle, okay, which is fresh cooked food. They might have, I just went to this place yesterday to check it out. It's called Nally Fresh. All right. Let me show you what Nally Fresh offers that's not offered in the hood. And this is fast food. This is to-go food. All right. Look at it. This looks good, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Looks delicious. It was delicious. I tried their turkey chili bowl. Mm-hmm. Guess what? The turkey chili bowl was less than a meal that I would order at a fast food restaurant. So it was affordable as well. All right. So this business, okay, that is fast food offers, look at what it's offering. I mean, come on. I want to eat that every single day. It's fast food, but it's fresh. All right. So they offer what? They're offering greens. They're offering vegetables. Then they offer different kinds of meat. Or if you don't want meat, you can skip that. And then they offer spices, vegetables, onions, beans, seeds, etc. Fresh. All right. It took them 3 minutes to make my food. That was it. So when we talk about eating healthy, I do want to put this in perspective that healthier choices are not offered in the hood. All right. So we get on these soapboxes about eating healthy, but then we don't step back and look at what kinds of choices are offered to people who don't have a car many times to drive out of their neighborhood to go find fresh food. Okay, if I go to my local grocery store and I look at the fruit and vegetable section and I don't like what's there, or I don't feel that the food is fresh enough, or I feel like the food is not organic, I can get in my car and drive further to an Aldi's or to a Trader Joe if I want to. But many of these people don't have cars. Some of them use bikes as transportation. Some of them are using the bus. So you have to be realistic about what are you asking people to do, and do they have the resources to go get up and do what you're asking them to do. One way that I know communities are trying to solve this issue is by the farmers market, right? So again, in certain areas of my town, I notice on Saturdays, farmers markets pop up, okay? Even in the hood. People come out there and they're selling their fresh vegetables and their fresh fruits. So while we're having this discussion, I just want to put that caveat in there. All right. A lot of times people say, oh, it's easy to eat organic. It's easy to eat organic when those resources are readily available to you, or you can get to those resources. All right. So think about that. We have 2 more sections here, and then we're going to stop for the day. The truth about doctors. When you get sick, what's the first thing you do? Probably go to the doctor, right? He or she might give you a few tests, feel around a bit, and then send you home with a new medication to add to your collection. That may be fine and well for an illness, but it's not working for your health. We've gotten almost robotic about our wellness, like we're on an assembly line and doctors can just plug in what needs to go where. But the truth is, doctors aren't the most important experts who should be involved in your care. You are. I had gotten to the point where I was giving doctors the responsibility for what happened to my body, and that's one of the reasons why I was such a mess. Many of us have totally given our health over to doctors, and we're not willing participants in the process until the moment he makes a mistake, and then we sue them. Like we had nothing to do with it. And that's absolutely ridiculous. We're not children anymore, and it's time to take responsibility for how we feel. One of the toughest lessons I had to learn was that I had to manage my own ship, and so do you. You're the captain, and you know where medicine has gotten you, or you wouldn't be reading this book. This issue with giving up all our control to our doctors is that they're not always right. In fact, physician error, medication error, and adverse events from drugs or surgery is the third leading cause of death in the United States, right behind cancer and heart disease. The worst offender, which accounts for almost half of those deaths, complications with medication. Now, please let me say this, because I had a complication with medication that almost killed me. All right? One time. All it takes is one time for your body to have an adverse reaction to a medication, and then you can never take it again. Just once. You could have taken that medication before, but once your body has an adverse reaction to it, you are now considered allergic to that thing and you can't take it anymore. And it's important that if you are seeing a doctor, that you are very clear and adamant about what things you cannot have. If you can't have antibiotics, do not allow doctors to prescribe you with antibiotics. How do I know this? Because I experienced it, okay? And guess what? When they realized they could not prescribe me an antibiotic, guess what? They found something else to prescribe me, which means they could have prescribed that to me in the first place. Hello, somebody. They could have prescribed me something other than an antibiotic in the first place. So again, as she's talking about here, make your doctor do their job. Make them do the work. Exactly. They had to give me a healthy alternative to an antibiotic because I cannot take them. All right? Here's what she says. When surgery isn't killing people outright, it's not necessarily helping them either. Take the all too common bypass procedure. Within 3 years of an operation, 1/3 of patients will suffer from chest pains again. Within 10 years of having bypass, half the patients will have died, had a heart attack, or be back to square one with their symptoms. And we actually had a friend of ours that died from complications with the bypass surgery. So if you can lose weight, all right, if you can lose weight by adjusting your diet and being disciplined, I would definitely say go that route. All right. I know some people have to have bypass. I know one man, I looked at his testimony. I think he was like 900 pounds. And he said that he had to bring his diet down to eating out of a Jell-O cup for a year to help him lose some of his weight before he did bypass. But again, that was like an extreme case. All right. She says here, actually people who undergo a bypass operation have no fewer heart attacks than those who don't have the surgery in the first place. But if surgery isn't addressing the issue or the cause of illness, then why is no one talking about what will? In traditional medicine, diet and lifestyle routinely take a back seat to drugs and surgery. When was the last time your doctor told you what to eat? Can you imagine what the healthcare system would look like if doctors were sending away their patients with a prescription for spinach? The answer is what lies at the root of healthcare quandary. No one would be coming back time and time again. Doctors who spend 10, 20 years of their lives learning the most advanced surgical techniques would be undermined by vegetables. Far fewer of us would be handing over hundreds or even thousands of dollars on medications or procedures. Insurance and drug companies could no longer hold us hostage. It would be a disaster for everyone but the patients. This doesn't mean your doctor is a bad person. It just means he or she probably doesn't know any better. Starting in medical school, doctors are taught that the best approach to health is chemical and mechanical. Drug companies have their hands deep in the medical education system as well, from having medical faculty on their payrolls to sponsoring research grants for drug studies to leading educational seminars that aren't much more than advertisements to pay tens of thousands of dollars in gifts and meals and speaking fees. These companies spend $19 billion annually to make sure that by time these doctors are to become practicing physicians and surgeons, they'll remember the good folks who sent their families to Disneyland. Unfortunately, this method is working. All those pens and notepads and mugs and bagel breakfasts and steak dinners are putting pills in doctors' hands, even if there are no sound medical studies that bolster their efficiency. 71% of doctors were found in one study to believe marketing propaganda over scientific evidence to the contrary. But the reason why you can walk out of a doctor's office with 100 pounds overweight with a prescription for a knee replacement surgery instead of a nutrition and exercise program is because that's just not what they're trained to do. Doctors are experts in treating symptoms, but when it comes to actually treating diseases that stem from lifestyle, they're at a loss. Most medical schools require a minimal amount of education on nutrition. Only 25% of all accredited medical schools require such a course. Now, I know when I was in college, I made it my business to take nutrition for myself, even though I was not going into a medical field path. And so, you continue to receive test after test, prescription after prescription for problems that just won't go away. The fact is that doctors don't know everything. I read an article recently where a doctor interviewed said that professionals in his industry don't have enough science to support 85% of the medicine they are practicing and prescribing. There's a tremendous amount of pressure for doctors to have all the answers. So what do? They prescribe. In a recent study, 42% of doctors admitted that their patients received too many pills, tests, and procedures. Not because they felt strongly that it was the best course of treatment, but because they were afraid of being sued for not doing enough. Howard recently came back from the doctor who recommended he take a low dose of aspirin every day to avoid a heart attack or stroke. I just read a study that said you shouldn't be doing that, especially if you're already healthy, because it doesn't significantly reduce your risk for heart attack. But it does double your risk for internal bleeding. So I asked him, did the doctor tell you that you're healthy? Yeah. Well then, why is he putting you on a low dose of aspirin? It's like the doctor was admitting that his saying Howard was healthy meant nothing. He didn't even ask about his lifestyle, how he eats. He was making recommendations solely on his age and possible predictors, because the tests can only guesstimate whether a person will receive or have a heart attack or stroke. When doctors prescribe unnecessary drugs and treatments, they expose patients to whole new risks that they didn't have in the first place. So soon it becomes a vicious cycle, because the drugs they're now unnecessarily taking are causing unwanted side effects, for which a doctor may prescribe yet another medication. They're kind of cute, those little pills. They look harmless enough. So you figure, sure, I'll take that one. But you have no idea what they're doing in there altogether. It reminds me of when I was in chemistry class. After class, my lab partner and I would pour all the chemicals we were working into the test tube to see if something would explode. That's what I imagine happens with all those pills swimming around in your system. They're eating you. That's why heavily medicated people are often prescribed Prilosec or other gastroesophageal reflux disease drugs to keep their chemical cocktail from eating through their stomach. And if your doctor does happen to know about the power of food, it still doesn't necessarily mean that he or she will share it with you. Because so many patients come in wanting the easiest solution, which usually means slugging down a pill, doctors will most likely assume that you're in the same boat and not explore other avenues. After I swore off doctors and started detoxing, I ran into my old chiropractor at a party. It had been a while since I'd last seen him, and he couldn't believe how different I looked. He asked what I'd been doing, so I told him about the cleanses and how I was using food as a medicine. Do you want to know what he said? I didn't know you'd be into that. I told him, what, you think I didn't want to be well? When you're armed with information, you no longer have to guess or capitulate. You won't need to be in the doctor's office all the time asking, what's wrong with me? And then be given something to make you be quiet. I'm tired of these doctors who are beating up their patients with their degrees. Before my most recent procedure, I had several major qualms about how my surgeon was handling my care. You better believe that I came down on them. I didn't owe them any favors. In fact, I realized that they owed me the favor. I was giving them the privilege to take care of my most valued possession. I was allowing them to treat my body. And after I spoke up, he went from dictator doctor to someone who began to ask me questions and listen to my answers. We ought to be much more demanding of our medical professionals. It is our right. Lastly, I want to go to today these blood tests. So for those of you who are taking notes, it's interesting because almost every test that she talks about here are tests that I had to get. So I am in agreement with her as to the test that will save your life. Next week, we're going to look at her talk about processed foods. All right, so that's the only piece that we didn't get through today. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. How blood tests can save your life. Blood tests are crucial when it comes to getting an accurate picture of your overall health. Understanding exactly what's going on in your body is necessary for your doctor to care for you appropriately. But unfortunately, the current standard blood panels are out of date and are leading doctors to over-medicate patients. Take your traditional cholesterol test. You've probably been tested and know your number, but that's only half of the story. Cholesterol comes in two sizes. There's big particles, or HDL, and small, which are LDL. As we talked about before, LDL are the sticky ones that like to cling to your arteries and ruin things. HDL are actually absorbent and help ferry the LDL particles back to the liver for reprocessing. But if your cholesterol test is only counting total particles, then your doctor has no way of knowing if you're stocked up on the useful HDL or clogged with the LDL. If he sees a number he doesn't like, you could end up on medication when simply a change in diet, additional exercise, or some niacin and fish oil would have done the trick. These medications, or statins, the most widely prescribed drug in the world, come with a host of their own issues. They've been linked to memory loss and diabetes, as well as muscle pain and leg spasms. The point I'm trying to make is that the more accurate information you have about your health, the better both you and your doctor can maintain and improve your well-being. The tests listed below are a good place to start for assessing your general picture of wellness and will allow a healthcare practitioner to tailor a plan of action for your needs. Requesting lab tests can mean having to pay out of pocket, but remember, wouldn't you rather find a way to pay for blood work now than a lifetime of medication and surgeries? Somebody say, yes, I would. So, as we close today, I want to give you the list of blood tests that she's talking about. So here's the blood test menu. This is called a chemistry panel and a complete blood count, or a CBC. You also want to have your vitamin D tested. You also want to have vitamin B12 tested. You want to have ferritin level tested. You want to have your fasting insulin tested, your fasting glucose, a full thyroid panel, a VAP, all right, NMR lipid profile, and lastly, your hemoglobin A1C. So I hold this up here so you can screenshot it for those of you who are screenshotting. This is the blood work you need to be getting done. And I'm going to turn it over so you can see that. All right. Well, this concludes our Daring Dialogue for today. I hope you learned something. I hope it was helpful for you. And like I said, we'll be back next week. We're only going to be back next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we're going to take a break at episode 60 so that I can do what I need to do to continue my own health journey. And then we will be back after that. I think I'm going to probably need a week time of recovery. But I am thankful. I'm thankful that I know what I know now, and I know what I need in order to continue my health journey. I know what I need to do in order to recover. And as she said, you don't want to be the person that is just barely hanging on in your health. You want to make sure that you are optimizing your good health. All right. I want to say thank you again today for your time and attention. And I hope that you have a great and wonderful weekend. I will be speaking this weekend for our ministry. And so we'll be broadcasting live here Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can come back and join us then. And until then, I hope that you have a great and wonderful week and weekend. Understand and know that light is the most daring opposition to darkness. When we have light, we illuminate the dark places and spaces around us. All right. So please go out this weekend and be light somewhere. Take care and God bless. And thank you all again for viewing. Take care and God bless.